Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our closing plenary session for this year's ICRS Exchange. My name is Reagan Leahy, and I'm the Program Manager for the Institute. And I'm delighted to bring back Anita, who is the Chair of the ICRS, as well as Jenny, our Vice Chair, to share their closing thoughts on everything that we've heard and seen and discussed today. And just give a bit of a kind of overview of the kind of key takeaways that we've found from this exchange around owning the table. So if I can kick off then with Jenny first, I think. Jenny, you facilitated an absolutely fascinating session this morning for our keynote with the team from Royal London around how you can own the table and really make that work. Could you share a few of the key takeaways for those members of our audience who maybe weren't able to attend that first session?
Yeah, definitely happy to. So, I mean, first of all, I found it really reassuring that, one, you're not the only person who suddenly finds himself thrown under the spotlight and, wondering perhaps what you should be doing. So there was a lot of reassurance there. But also, I think what we talked about, it was fantastic. So for those of you who weren't there, we had Nadia from Royal London, who's head of their purpose strategy, but we also had two non-CRS practitioners. And, I really felt like this is not just our time in our spotlight, but this is our time to be welcomed with open arms. The rest of the business, we're not a mild irritation on the side of the business anymore. We've got some solid answers and we've got some solid ways of doing things. And I think one of the key lessons for me is that we just need to ask, involve people early on. And I think, perhaps for the first time in my career, we're going to be welcomed with open arms because everybody in the business is grappling with these issues now. And everybody may be talking a good game when it comes to ESG and their knowledge, but we perhaps need to have a little bit of confidence in our own ability that we've been doing this for a long time and we've got a lot to offer in the business. So, fantastic session, I thought, on how to bring things together, how to take a traditional corporate responsibility program and link it in to the business strategy and how important insights and data are to that, but equally how important the enthusiasm and the authenticity of CRS practitioners are in that. It's two sides of the same coin. We need the hard facts, but we need the passion. And yeah, we will be welcomed with open arms. I think just linking into that, one of the points we heard in one of the later sessions, I think super relevant to that first session we had, was that you can't lose ambition in the face of uncertainty, which I think is something I am going to remember and keep close to my heart and mind over the next few months.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jenny. And yeah, I was really struck by that quote as well around ambition and uncertainty. And for those of you who were just in our previous session with Amanda and Janik around active adaptation and the research they were doing on the, what can I call them, characteristics or attitudes that sustainability professionals need to be brave. I think they didn't shy away from the fact that we are in this state of uncertainty, but for us and as practitioners, I think that key skill is adaptation and not losing sight of that and asking for what we know we can achieve and what I think really we all know has to be achieved within the next kind of 5 to 10 year time period, I think is one of the resounding takeaways that I've heard from today as well. And Anita, you attended some of the sessions that we ran as well in parallel that focused on net zero and climate change, ESG and investor relations, social mobility and leveling up, as well as CRNS reporting trends. And I wonder if you can just give me a few reflections on those sessions that you attended.
Yeah, thanks, Reagan. And just to say, I actually attended the social mobility session and I found it so enlightening and so it was such a great learning experience, actually. And I think, some of the things that came out of that for me were very much around the fact that we talk a lot about social inclusion, but actually there are some, and I think there's quite a lot of, uncertainty, I guess, still about what that really means in practice. And we heard some great examples, for example, from KPMG about what they're doing to address this whole issue. I think one of the key points that came out of it was this idea that as well as recruiting and attracting talent, it's actually important to focus on the progression of that talent once you've recruited it. So I thought that was really helpful. I kind of came up with 3 C's, which is a sort of overall reflection on what we've been talking about today. And I think the first one is C for confidence. And I think we really need to be confident as CRS practitioners. We do have the skills that we need to address this agenda. We've got great track records. We know how to manage or engage our stakeholders. We're good at influencing. We're good at tackling with detractors, and we can be incredibly flexible and learn quickly. So I think it's important to hold on to that confidence, but with some caveats, I guess, which I'll come to in a minute. The other thing that kicked out for me was this whole idea of competitiveness. And we had a really interesting discussion in the last session around the importance of collaboration and recognizing actually that some anti-competitive laws mean that we can't collaborate as much as we can do. But I really think this is a key element of what we need to do. We need to focus on that collaboration. And again, something that came out of the Royal London discussion was this idea of cross-functional collaboration. So you have that collaboration within an organisation, but we also need to be thinking about cross-company collaboration. And we saw loads of that during the COVID pandemic. You know, what we're facing is equivalent or perhaps more serious than a COVID pandemic. So I think focusing in hard on that collaborative bit is really, really important. And then the third C, which is a kind of thinking about our own characteristics as professionals. So I guess it was about thinking about this collective approach as CR professionals. So how can we, first of all, explore and be reflective about how we act and what we do within our organisation? And that's linking back to this bravery piece. Holding on to that idea of humility and integrity, which I think are 2 really key characteristics for CR practitioners, and particularly for me, the integrity piece. You can't try and influence if you're not demonstrating your own integrity. And it's linked to I think something that Jenny said really is, you know, recognizing that we need to ask for help. So if we don't know something, if we don't understand something, if we're not sure, it's fine to ask. And that reflects quite nicely back to the whole idea of humility. And just one last thing, which again, it's going back to the last session, this idea of challenging the status quo. Just because things have always been done in one way, it doesn't mean to say they have to be done that way in the future. And I think for me, that transcends so many of the themes that we've talked about today.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Anita. And Jenny, how does that strike you from your kind of role as an active practitioner in quite a lot of organizations?
Yeah, no.
Those kind of collaboration and humility elements are very key in practice.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, you know, everything you said, Anita, resonates really strongly with me. I think, you know, the confidence point of knowing, you know, heading in the direction, you have your confidence, but you also need to back that up with stats, because some people only listen to stats. Having faith in knowing what we are doing. I think the collaboration point is really interesting, because I sense we are going back into a phase. One of the things I've always loved about the profession is that it's so open. Everybody is willing to share. You know, and that's what, you know, everywhere where ICRS has come from is about collaboration and practitioners supporting each other. But I think that there's a sense at the moment as the wider business takes on, you know, the purpose agenda and corporate responsibility and sustainability, it will slip back into being seen as more of a competitive position when it absolutely isn't. You know, you take the industry I work in at the moment, tobacco, we collaborate, and we have very strict rules in place about what we can collaborate on and what we can't, and rightly so. But we have all said for many years there's absolutely no competitive advantage in one of us solving the issue of child labour. So we need to collaborate. But I think at the moment that's something that as practitioners would be very good for us to continue promoting, because like I say, as the other people in the business get hold of it, my fear is that people will see it as more of a competitive advantage. No one's going to get anywhere if we don't collaborate. So, you know, I think it's all absolutely valid. Good reflections.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Jenny. And it strikes me as well that those collaboration pieces are even more critical for those really key material issues on it for a given industry or sector. And helps you almost get around that, not get around the antitrust kind of competitive element, but focuses the mind in a way. When you have one key material issue, like food waste for the supermarket sector, they know the only way that they're going to make actual demonstrable change is through that collaboration and setting of industry-wide standards and working with kind of regulation to get there. Similar with issues with very specific industries who are at risk of child labor in their supply chains. So that also strikes me as probably something we'll see more and more in the future, to provide that kind of collaboration space within the kind of realms of competition law. Brilliant. So Anita, this is your final ICRS exchange as chair. For those of you who don't know, Anita's term will be finishing the 1st of December, so about 2 weeks to go. I wonder if you have a kind of you're slapping the days off like an advent calendar, Anita, I don't know. Or you're desperately stapling them because you'll miss us so much. But you've seen many exchanges and many events that the ICRS has run, as well as the development of the Institute over the last many years. I was about to say 3 years, but it's been more than that. How has this exchange kind of struck you, kind of within where the topics we're speaking about compared to the others that you've attended?
I think the thing to say really is, after it feels like 100 years in corporate responsibility and only 4 as chair, and it's the latter, Regan. I'm leaving with a great sense that, first of all, the ICRS is in a great position, and I feel really pleased about that, and that's thanks to the board really, and to your work at Carnstone. I think this exchange has been really interesting in that we've talked about it already, but it's a profession whose time really truly has come, and I felt that sense of energy and that sense of urgency, if you like, more at this exchange than I have over the last exchanges, I guess. So I guess that's a kind of key takeaway from me. I will be coming to future exchanges, so you haven't got rid of me completely. But yeah, I just think, I've loved being chair. I think it's an amazing organisation. I've been working with some fabulous people. I've had a few sleepless nights, which is a good thing for the Institute, I guess, perhaps not such a great thing for me. And yeah, it just feels good to be standing down at a time when the Institute is in such a strong position, and when the profession is so critically important to the future.
Brilliant, thank you. And we may, knowing this was your last exchange, I may have induced Jenny to prepare a few words. So I might hand over to her now to do that.
Thank you. Of course, we can't let this go without, marking, and I am hugely honoured to say a few words on behalf of myself, Secretariat, the board, and the wider membership on this your very last exchange as chair. You've been with the Institute. I can't believe it's only 4 years you've been chair. It feels like longer. But you have been with the Institute right from the very start. 7 years ago, when we were all wondering and hoping what it would be that it is today, and of course with CRG for many years before that. So it's a very, very long tenure for you, and now we're in this amazing position under your leadership. We're 60 organisational members, 1,200 individual members. We've got an amazing new brand. We're modern. We've got all of these active participants, and that is all down to you.
No, it's not.
Take the credit.
Okay, yeah, it is.
I think we are stronger, and we're providing more services than we ever have done to our members under your leadership. And I think most important, we've listened, and now we're supporting members, across the breadth of the country through every stage of their career. The expansion of the regional hubs program, the Expire hub, all of those things have happened under your leadership. And I think what I will say is relentless focus on what's right for our members has meant we've been able to flex really quickly as well. We've not just had one plan and stuck with it. And I remember, that ability to flex has meant we could very quickly introduce our fireside chats when the pandemic struck. That created, I think, a very safe space and an immediate support for our members and our practitioners. I found it incredibly useful, and I know many other people did too. And I think, aside from the overseeing the day-to-day running of ICRS, you've dedicated a huge amount of your personal time to promoting the ICRS, making sure we are known, making sure we are respected, building partnerships, with the likes of Edie, with the media. I can't let this pass without mentioning your glowing feature in the Balkans CSR magazine. Your influence, Anita, stretches far and wide. And I'm going to say the only downside to you being chair is the insane jealousy we have all felt when you have been conducting a board meeting from one of your tropical work locations while we have been sat in a dreary London office. But again, that's just testament to the dedication you have given to the Institute, that no matter what else is going on in your personal and professional life, you've put ICRS front and centre. On a personal note, your good humour throughout even the most worrying times and the difficult times, and the sage personal and professional advice you've given to me, other board members, and anyone who's interacted with you will have a lasting impact. So a heartfelt thanks from me, the Secretariat, the board, and I'm sure the wider membership for your dedication to getting ICRS where it is today. So thank you. Virtual round of applause.
Thank you. Thanks, Jenny. I've got goosebumps, so I probably need to leave.
Well, you will be missed very, very much.
Thank you.
So now just say thank you to everybody else who has been involved in the exchange today. Time to draw things to a close. Over to Regan, the Secretariat, everybody who's chaired a session